Hi everyone. Don't worry about doing the actual multiplication problem there, but we're doing Throwback Thursday like I've been doing, and I didn't want you to miss out what I was showing the kids in person. So this is another costume picture I promised you that I had. So this is me right here as the ladybug. My mom made that costume for me. It was pretty cool. My cousin Ryan is the white Power Ranger, and then my cousin Lauren is Jasmine. So we were all at my grandma's house getting ready to go trick-or-treating. Thought it was timely with Halloween just around the corner. So real quick, for extra math, I'm reading that off in class today, but if you want to know how many more you need to do for the week, just shoot me an email and I will get back to you so that you know how many more you need to do. Same with if you want your score. I just want to let you know that, but we're going to talk about finding the area of irregular polygons, so like irregular shapes. So let's start with this first one, and these are in your notes. They're already done for you, so if you want to have that as a reference, that could be good for you. Or you can just quickly draw this out in your math notebook or whatever scratch paper you have, because you're going to want to be able to label the pieces. This irregular shapes is a little trickier, so make sure you're following along step by step with us, doing it with the shape so that you can see what parts are which, okay? So we've got this irregular shape here, but we don't have an area formula when it's irregular shape, so we have to break it down into shapes that we can work with. And there's a couple different ways you could do it, but I'm going to show you what I can, okay? Like what I would do. So I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and we have to find these missing measurements. Make sure you know how to do this, because first off, you need it to find the area, and secondly, you're going to be asked to do that on your practice later today. So we've got FE, so right here, FE, okay, is 30. So I'm just going to label that 30 right there, so I know that that's for FE. And then DC, so right down here, okay, is 10. So I'm going to label that. So again, sketch it out on your paper and do it with me so that you can practice this and it'll help you when you go to do your practice. Okay? But we also need to know a few other measurements. So, actually before we do that, I'm sorry. So now because we know FE and DC, it can help us figure out the length of AB, because if I look, I can see that that AB is just the same as if I put FE and DC together, right? You see how they take up the same amount of space? So that means if I do 30 plus 10, that gets me 40. So AB must be 40. Okay, so go ahead and label that on yours. And all I did was put together that I can tell that these sides would be the same. So I know if I were to kind of think of it as DC up here, connecting this part all the way across, 30 plus 10 gets me 40. So let's try these other measurements. So how about AF? Right here is 28, so I'm going to write that there. Okay, and then I've got BC is 54, so that's all the way down here. Okay, sorry, Cora's barking in the background. So let's use that BC measurement and that AF measurement to figure out this ED measurement. Well, if BC is this whole length here, okay, let me actually switch to a different color real quick so that you can see it better. So if BC is this whole length here, and AF makes up this much, we need to figure out, well, what would ED be? What would the rest of that space be? So to do that, we can take 54, because that was what BC was, minus 28, because that's how much AF was so far, so that kind of takes up like this much space. Well, we need to know what's the rest of it going to be for that ED. So if we do this subtraction real quick, you can use a calculator if you want, or you can just do it off to the side here. But I'm going to have to borrow. Okay, so I end up with 6 and 2. So I end up with 26 here. So ED ends up being 26. Okay, so now that we've got all of our measurements labeled, I'm just going to go to the next slide where it's all labeled now, nice and neat. So there's all of our measurements. Make sure yours is labeled too. Now that we know those lengths, how could we maybe break down this shape to find the area? Well, there's a couple different ways we could do it. I could break it up, like this is just how my brain works. I can see that this can be broken down into two rectangles. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this across. Oops, that did not work very straight. Okay. Let me try that a little better. But I can cut that across and create two rectangles like that. See, I've got one rectangle here and one rectangle here if I do that. So I could do it that way. Another way you could do it, let me just show you real quick. I could also make this long rectangle here if I wanted to. And so I would have one longer rectangle here and a little shorter one here. And I could find the areas of those rectangles and add them together, and that would work too. So whichever way makes sense to you, go ahead and try, but I'm going to show you this way. So if you want to do it with me, I'm going to show you where we broke up the rectangles like this. And if it helps you to trace this so you can actually see those two rectangles, please do so. It makes it much easier to see it. And if you want to use two different colors, go ahead and do that. It's your choice, okay? So I'm going to start with this bigger rectangle first. I'm going to start right here and figure out the area of that rectangle, okay? Because since I couldn't figure out for the shape, I had to break it down to rectangles. So I see that this shape has a length of 40, right? That's that AB side, which is the same as this side on the other side. And I see that it has a width of 28, right? So that's the same as these sides, which would be the same as this, okay? So in order to figure out the area of this rectangle, I'm going to have to take 40 times 28. This is where you're going to want your calculator. So go ahead and use your calculator if you have one handy, or you can just Google one if you want. Please do use calculators, okay? I want you to use them. But when you do that, and if you want to pause to go do it on your own, that's fine. Or I can tell you, I ended up with 1,120. Okay, and we don't have any units, so I'm just going to put units squared, like a U squared, okay? So that's for this rectangle, but don't forget, we also have this other rectangle. I'm going to switch colors so you can see it more easily. We also have this rectangle right here that we have to figure out. So I need to know that right there. Well, for that rectangle, I can see that it has a length of 10, width of 26, right? We've got 10 here, 26 here. I don't need that 54 because that was for the whole side. I don't need that now. So we're going to take 26 times 10 for this rectangle. Well, I can use that 10 trick and just do 26 times 10, add that 0, so 200. Oops, sorry about that, 1 sec. 260, and that's what this rectangle would be, and that would be units squared as well. The last step, I know we've done so much, but we're almost there. So we've done this rectangle, we've done this rectangle, now we need to put them together. So we're going to add up our 1,120 from the big rectangle, and then add 260 from our other rectangle to it to get the total area of the shape. So go ahead and use your calculator if you want for this. And add up that 1,120 plus the 260 to get 1,380. That's how much that original shape's area is. So I know that was a lot of steps, but all we were really doing was finding the area of this rectangle, finding the area of that rectangle, and adding them together. So that's why it was so important back here when we found all those measurements. We have to know all of those measurements in order to figure out the length of all those sides of the rectangle, okay? I know this is a little bit of a lengthy video. Stay with me, okay? A couple more things, a couple more practice problems. So now I've got this. So first off, let's find all the missing sides. Okay, well, let's start off easy. I can see right here that there is a 4 meters representing this section. Well, that's mirrored on the other side right here, so that means that is 4 as well. Okay, let's get that one right out of the way. Same with this one. I see that this whole long side is 9 meters. Well, that's just the same as this, so I'm going to put 9 on this side. Okay, the last little measurement is right here. I'm going to use a different color. Right here. So the way we could figure that measurement out is by using the 7, which is the whole bottom, but then we're going to need to use these little 2's. So we know that this much and this much put together would be 4 out of this 7. So the rest of it is going to be 3. right? Because 4 plus 3 is 7. So if I take 2 plus 3 plus 2, that's going to add up to be 7, and all of those put together would equal the same thing, okay? So now we've got our measurements on there. Now let's look at how are we going to break this down, because we don't know the area of this kind of shape. So let's break it down. Now personally, this is what I would do. I would go like this, okay, to break it into those 3 rectangles. However, you could also do this. You could always draw them down and make some longer rectangles. Either one is correct. You decide what works best for you, but personally, this is what makes sense in my brain. So I'm going to have this rectangle right here, then a matching one right here, and then this big one down here. Okay? So let's do these 2 little guys because they're going to be the exact same thing. Okay? So if I look at those 2 little ones, I can see it has a width and length here. So we got 2 times 4. And I know that's 8. Oops, sorry, there we go. 8, so that means we've got 8 meters squared for this rectangle and this rectangle. And if I'm going too fast, feel free to pause and take another look. Okay, so now I need to look at this space right here. Let me switch it to another color here. Okay, so we're looking right here at this rectangle. Well, I know it has 7 as one of its length, but I need to figure out what's the rest of this. So the 9 was for the whole side, but I just need this section. So if I use this whole length and I realize that this much was this 4 here, I know that 9 minus 4 gives me 5. So the leftover space for this square or rectangle is 5. So we're going to do 5 times 7, because we got the 7 from down here. And I know that's 35 meters squared. So now I just need to add everything up. I know it's looking a little messy here. Let me get another color going. I'm going to use black here real quick. So we've got the 8 from this rectangle plus the 8 from this rectangle and the 35 from this rectangle. So we're going to add that up. Use your calculator to add that up. So we're going to do 35 plus 8 to get 51 meters squared. That would be our answer to this problem. Okay? I'm going to skip this your turn. You are more than welcome to try that if you want, but I really want to get to this next one. I know the video is getting long, but this is so important and we'll keep coming back to it, okay? But let's look at this last one here. So let's focus on decomposing, so breaking down this shape. So what shapes do we see in this irregular shape? Well, I see a rectangle right here, and I see a triangle, okay? So let's focus on those 2 shapes. I'm going to start with the rectangle, because that's a little easier to work with. So the rectangle, let me get going with that. If I look right here at the rectangle, I can see it has a length of 6 and a width of 5. So I'm just going to be real simple and do my length times width. And I know that that is 5 times 6 to get 30 centimeters squared. So that's how much just for the rectangle here. Okay? But now we got to do the triangle. Okay, so let me get another color going. Sorry, one sec, Cora's barking. All right, so we're going to do this triangle right here. Let me get my color going right here. So we need to know, well, if I look, this height of the triangle is the same as this side of the rectangle, so I know that's 5. And the 14 is for the whole thing, so that's 14. But this much of it is 6, so I know if I do 14 minus 6, oops, I get 8. Well, that's what this leftover piece would be. So for my triangle, I've got a base of 8 and a height of 5. So I'm going to multiply those, but don't forget to divide by 2 because it's a triangle, so important. So you got 8 times 5 is 40. Divided by 2, it's 20. So then you just need to add those together. 30 plus 20 gives us 50 centimeters squared. So that would be our answer for this polygon, irregular polygon. So I've got just a little bit of time left. You've got some irregular polygons practice to do and extra math. Please feel free to go back and take a look at something.